Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Jay. What's up, gentlemen?
Yo, it's Nova Week in the DC region.
It is.
It is, yeah.
I'm painting currently. In fact, I'm painting droids. There's a Magna Guard that I'm working on.
Oh, nice.
It's a little preview for what I'm probably playing this weekend.
Whatever, waffle.
He's literally been waffling for the last 2 weeks in our private team chat, and he's on a different faction every day.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, it's true.
And for those of you that are new to our podcast and new to Kyle, this isn't because of the new rules or because it's
they've exacerbated the situation.
Kyle's been doing this for 6 years since I've known him. This is not something new.
Yeah. I own all the factions. I enjoy all of them in different ways. And it is what it is. So,
I want somebody out there to go back through our archives and just cut together every episode before a tournament that Kyle's going to. Well, I think this is what I'm playing, and then it turns out he doesn't play that at all.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I also really enjoyed Vader Pelp when I played it.
Yeah.
I guess, was that last weekend or that was 2 weeks ago?
That was 2 weeks ago. You enjoyed it right up to the point where I kicked your butt.
Yes, that's true. I think if I had won that game, this would be a different story. But I didn't. You kicked my butt with Anakin.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is what it is. I don't know.
It's a fun list, but has some weaknesses for sure.
It does have some weaknesses, mostly the fact that stormtroopers are still bad.
I don't think that's true.
So here's the reason I say that.
Right.
I think they are better at being cheap and better at shooting things.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that their melee is worse was a real adjustment for me.
Sure.
And that I'm used to kind of when playing Empire to just be able to bring stormtroopers and being like, all right, I got storms, I got Vader, I can handle melee lists. Like if stuff gets in my face, I'm just gonna punch it, and that's fine. And you can't do that anymore. Yeah. So, and Empire doesn't have a lot of we talked about this in the Empire episode or possibly the tournament recap episode, but basically Empire doesn't have a lot of non-character anti-melee units. Every other faction basically has some kind of reasonably spammable unit that can do melee and other things now, right? With clones you got arcs, and then even the regular core troopers have black dice at least. Rebels might be slightly worse off. I guess they have fleets, but fleets are still fleets.
The rebels are dead before they get to melee.
Yeah, okay, that's also true. And droids have B2s, which I actually happen to have a lot of because I used to play them all B2s back when that was the thing.
Speaking of, I have a special delivery for you.
For me, great.
In the B2 context, right?
Yeah. So if it gives you an idea of what I'm thinking about playing for Nova, I have a lot of B2s because, again, I played them back when they were cool, and I am borrowing more B2s. So
Fantastic.
And I'm also probably going to put Magna Guard in the list. That's, as I said, what I'm working on currently painting.
What battle force you're playing?
It's not a battle force.
No, I was going to say, I don't think it's a battle force.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
I thought about doing experimental droids, but they can only take 2 B2s.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
don't worry about it.
The title of my list is going to be something to do with red saves.
Right.
basically, because the entire list is red saves in a droid's faction. So
I
it's going
love
to be
it.
something like red save faction or something generic, suitably generic, and or maybe, hey, rebels, sorry, you're the only white save faction left. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If you got suggestions, let me know. But yeah, the entire list is going to be red saves, and it's going to be droids probably. So, but we're going to talk about droids today, so that seems appropriate.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Ooh.
Well, I'm much more excited about it than you are, Jay.
I'm excited. You don't get to tell me what I am.
Well, why don't we just dive in? Dive right into the
All
droids.
right.
So, yeah, the basically let's talk about, I don't think we need to hit each of these like individually
I
necessarily.
agree.
There is so the T series and all three super tactical droids.
Yep.
The primary change on all of them is they got exemplar.
Yep.
Discuss.
Yeah,
Exemplar's
I
good.
mean, real good.
Yeah.
It's particularly good with Kalani. Kalani and 2 exemplar units is just really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because he gets strategized too, right? So
Yep.
that's 4 tokens with 1 action. If you've got like a T series and Kalani, you do the strategize, you throw, 1 pair of tokens on the T series and 1 pair of
Mhm.
tokens on Kalani. And then you like dodge or aim or something, and then boom, you've just generated 5 exemplar tokens.
Yep.
And maybe you probably also have aggressive tactics, which gives you 2 to 4 more surges basically that you can share.
Yeah, and because you've only got 2 units of exemplar, like unlike clones who are like, oh man, I've got so many tokens, I really wish I could share more. Like, you're only ever like you have a very limited pool of tokens to pull from with Kalani, so it's just like you're always getting value off the tokens as opposed to like potentially burning them.
You're not going to be wasting tokens.
No, no, no. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a first world problem, I guess, for
Yeah.
clones, but
Well, I mean, it,
um,
it is in the sense that like clones don't have exemplar in that.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, like yeah, we can call it a first world problem or whatever, but you know, um all the other factions that now have exemplar. This is definitely the strongest version of it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he in particular, like the strategize too was always good. There was that especially when it was the spider droids, right, were really popular. Like just that strategize with them or even with the Magna Guard has just always been a really, really nice thing. And this just kind of like knocked it up to 11. It's just like, oh yeah, well, you like that? Because here's more. And oh, by the way, we're reducing him 15 points. So let's go
Yeah,
have some
they got some
fun.
pretty big cuts too in the points
Yeah, yeah,
department.
yeah.
Yeah. I also think is like as long as we're talking about the commanders kind of first and foremost, I think we really also need to talk about AI and how AI has changed
Yes.
because that's like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, as someone that has played a lot of droids and is considering playing droids this weekend, it's basically been deleted from the game. It's not like, I mean,
That I disagree with.
okay, I mean, look, range 3 is not infinite, right? But if you've got like certain units, if you have multiple commanders, obviously that stretches pretty far. So
Yeah.
basically, the change was they made it so that yeah, only triggers if you're not at range 3 of a commander.
And I think it's
Or
irrelevant of an order token now.
really?
I don't know. I would have to double
I
check.
think you still ignore it if you got a face up, which is going to be highly. Let me
Okay.
look because
So
that's going to be super relevant to
it's
this
range
conversation.
3 or an order token.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Which now that orders are unlimited range,
Is important. Yeah.
the
I
array and
definitely have
random.
had it come up in several of my games
Yeah, it's range 3 or an order
or an
token.
order token. Okay, cool. I definitely have had AI trigger more in the past 3 weeks than I've had it trigger in most of my old Legion games. Now, part of that I think is because the battlefield is so much more spread out that
And
it,
probably
like
because people are just kind of I don't think you can fully just be like, screw it, I'm not going to worry about it at all. Like, you still have
Well,
to make sure that.
I guess my point is like, if you scope a commander in this version of the game, like their whole army goes on AI. And
Until they can promote somebody else, yeah.
until they can promote somebody else. But if you scope a commander like early in the turn, which is not difficult to do now that like everybody can shoot everybody else all the time, um, it's actually pretty reasonable to like or shut down a complete flank with and stick it on AI if they don't have orders.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly the one time it could really matter, is if you can just kill, if if they don't have two commanders, and if you can kill their only one early in the turn.
Yeah.
Now, that said, that seems pretty easy to. I mean, at minimum, I feel like all droid players should just be taking a T series in their second commander slot, because it's a 60-point exemplar unit with bolster
I agree.
and direct. um, so like, you should have two commanders, right? Because it's a no-brainer to take the T series alongside something else.
Right, but they have to be, the thing is, because the board is so spread out, you do have to spread them out.
I guess, but like, if you only have 1 to 2 units that are off on their own flank, either you make it a unit where their AI is not that bad, so basically like not B2s or B1s, and sorry, distracted by something.
He's making a fantasy football pick.
I am.
Son of
Well, it's
a
not like.
biscuit.
I hope you got a good quarterback, Kyle.
I do. I have who do I have? I don't actually know.
Yeah, there you go.
This is perfect.
It's
I have
super
Dak Prescott.
tactical droid
Sorry.
cracking.
This should tell you about how much attention I paid.
He's all right.
This was inopportunely scheduled. Okay. The fantasy draft, not this podcast.
No.
Yeah. Sorry.
I know what you meant, and I agreed 100%. It's the recording time of this podcast.
Yeah, right. Which doesn't change. Never changes. It's always the same time every week.
Super inopportune.
So yeah, I think if I don't think you can completely ignore it. So that's a little bit hyperbole. But it's like, yes, things are more spread out, but also range 3 is still really far. A,
It is.
you have a huge incentive to take 2 commanders. B, orders are in limited range. So if you have a unit that's in danger of potentially having an AI situation, you just give them an order. C, and like, if you have a unit that's off on a flank and they're going to be far away from your commander, make it something that where the AI is not a big deal, because there are quite a few units where the AI is not a big deal.
That is fair.
Really, the AI attack is the only one that's like really potentially bad. AI move dodge, like on BX droids, it's like, okay, fine, you probably want to do one of those 2 things anyway.
Yeah.
So Magna Guard, same situation, right? It's really only AI attack that you have to worry about, like, really screwing you up, and that's just B1s and B2s. So
and the AAT.
And the AAT, that's right. Although you can give them a pilot that makes that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're really concerned about it. But also the AAT is probably going to be close to your commander.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I guess, okay, so we're talking about droids and playing them, but I think Mike brings up a good point that, like, hey, if you're playing against a droid list and you have an opportunity to take out a commander to kind of like force your opponent into an AI, destruction of themselves, if they're playing a lot of B1s or something like that, because I think I'm thinking more like along the lines of, I know I saw some people talking about playing that like 8B1 AT, heal bot list thing, and that generally only has one commander in it. So that's, that would be a good opportunity to just throw a monkey wrench in that whole list, right? Is just take out that commander, and then you're dealing with like right away, and then you're dealing with AI shenanigans for the rest of that.
Yeah, it definitely, the T series is more squishy than ever. It's really hard to hide it.
I mean, you can't hide anything anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of my point is
Yeah.
that like, the T series is still like dead on site when you lock it in, and now you kind of can't hide it. So,
But you got Surge Black.
Hmm.
Yeah.
woo!
I mean, hopefully the T series is not like at range 2 of things to be not benefiting from backup. Um, and maybe you also have some Magna Guard. So
Yeah,
it's at least like reasonable that he could survive a shot. But yeah, you got to be careful with your T series. Super attacks are a little bit more durable.
Yeah.
Um, T series did get Surge Block, which is good, but but he's only got 4 health.
paper
Yeah,
thin.
but I think
Yeah.
even with the super text, like you got to be careful.
You do.
Those
They
red
have
dice are
they're
like a
fickle.
false, yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
false sense of security.
And they still only have 5 health, which is
Yeah,
not a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Should we
I was playing against Black Sun on Sunday, and man, they just like stepped up and deleted like entire 6-man clone units, and like like you're still picking them up off the table like
yeah.
in handfuls. So you know,
Yeah. So real quick, the differences between the super tactical droids are still pretty similar. As far as the keywords are concerned, other than all of them getting exemplar, they're all almost the same. Kraken's sharpshooter 2 got downgraded to sharpshooter 1, but he also got better dice on his blaster rifle. It's 3 red with lethal 1. So that kind of offsets the sharpshooter downgrade. He's still got 4 red in melee. I think the biggest change as far as the actual unit cards are concerned is probably the generic super tactical droid got a significant buff on his gun. He now surges crit, which also is relevant for the 2-pip bombardment. And his blaster rifle's 2 red and a black with lethal 1. So
Hmm.
substantially better.
but they're all significantly cheaper too. If
Yeah, they all got like 15 points cut off.
Yeah.
which is gigantic,
That's a lot.
considering they also got exemplar.
Yeah. An override, by the way, which Kraken and the generic super tactical got, is now range 5, basically, to account for the AI change. So if you are concerned about AI triggering on some flank, I guess just take one of those two, and then you got range 5 override anyway. So
That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Hoggles on this list. I don't. Maybe someone else can highlight what Poggle got changed. I guess one of his command cards did get changed, which is the 1-pip. Basically, it got, since fire support is like not a thing anymore, it basically got changed to just if a droid unit is attacking something that's in range of Poggle, they get surge crit.
Yeah, I think the reason Poggle is on here, and
Override. He had override too.
I think
Oh,
yeah,
and now it's just override.
no, it's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also got 5 points cheaper, but that's kind of whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. All right. Dooku. Dooku got a lot of changes.
Dooku, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this yet. He got significantly cheaper just off the rip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
What?
it's
25 points?
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's almost like a wash though, right? Because I think with him, like you want force push.
So I'm not positive about that because his lightning is like way better in the new rules.
Okay, that's
Well,
fair.
yeah, not only does cover affect it less, but it got upgraded from 4 dice to 6.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
was 5 before, but yeah,
Was it?
I'm pretty sure it was 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
It's been a very long time since I played
he's
It
Dooku.
was 5. Yeah.
yeah, he's
Okay.
also like obviously has deflect, so he's surging against ranged attacks, but he's natively surging to block on, which means if something's got high velocity, he's still surging to block, and he's surging to block in melee.
Yes.
So he's just significantly more resilient. Um, he picked up direct trooper unit, and I actually like I didn't realize how open this was until the tournament the other day. I played against the Dooku, Asajj, Maul, Grievous list, and
Hmm.
Dooku is just directing whoever didn't play their command card that turn.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, if you run Dooku Asajj, Asajj can
Yeah.
just have an order every turn.
yeah, which
And
I don't know. When I read this originally, I was like, oh, that obviously says direct core trooper unit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, obviously. But that's not what it says.
No.
This is the I think this is the least restrictive direct in the game. Most of them are either core trooper or the super attacks have direct AI. But I think
Yeah.
this is literally the only kind of direct that is just straight any trooper unit.
Yeah, without like doing some shenanigans with like a comms relay or something.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. Like
I think
I
it's
think
yeah.
yeah, I think we were post the new version, like we were seeing some, I guess it was kind of like just non specific, but we're seeing some like downgrades of the Force users a little bit, and it's nice to see that they're bringing some of them back up to be competitive, and do well.
Yeah, I agree. So like I think Dooku specifically is in a really weird spot in that at 165 points, he is priced still like he should have force push baked into his kit for like 10 to 15 more
Yeah,
points.
I
But
agree.
like because when you're talking about paying 170 points for like a 6 health dude in this format, like it's gotta not die. you know,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I think he's in a weird spot. I do think like the chassis that he has right now, if he was like 140, I would feel a lot better about not taking force push. Um, but I don't
It's a,
know.
it's an awkward price point because it's not so cheap that you can just not take force push and be like, whatever, it'll probably be fine if he gets tied up or something. It's not a big
Yeah.
investment, but
Yeah.
it's expensive enough that if you do take push, in addition to his other stuff, that's like a 240 point unit,
Yeah.
He's
which
a
is a lot.
240 point unit, and with the addition of direct and the fact that he still has cunning, like if you're taking Dooku, like your list is still all about Dooku,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you lose Dooku, you're losing like several pieces to your puzzle, like all at once. So I don't know. I can see him being very good. I don't know. I don't know where he falls in the new force push conversation at this juncture.
Mm.
I think so having in the lead up to this attempted to build several Dooku lists, uh, I think you still need it. I
Yeah.
think there's an edge case where if you're running like Dooku Asajj, maybe you don't because Asajj can just whack whatever he's stuck with, and then it's and free him up, so to speak, and it's less of a deal. Or if you get into an Anakin situation, then you got two units that have Makashi that can whack
Yeah.
Anakin, so maybe
Actually
it's
kill
less of a
him.
big deal.
Yeah.
Um, so that's like an edge case where you don't want to take push, but I think if you're just running Dooku, that I kind of think you just have to take push.
That's fair.
Yeah, and then he also got Surge on block as well.
Yep. Which is a big deal.
Yep. Which I think to your point though, Mike, right? Like is he's you're kind of putting him in the win, but having that Surge to block kind of brings him up a little bit. And I think it might be. See, I would be worried that like you would, because he has the surge to block, like there may be some false confidence in that. And like you're like, oh yeah, he's gonna be fine. He surges to block and then he gets one shot by something.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
He definitely probably needs it. But it is it's a double-edged sword on like you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I can afford to put him into a situation where that's fine, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's almost interesting. Like I wonder if there is a play to kind of come off of both of that. I think he would have the points for this, but like you could almost make it where you put him into melee, like if you have a Saj, and you could use the snail tank to like boost him up, right? And put him into melee immediately. And then use a Saj to like bail him out if you need to, but he could just start like eating things right away.
You can't use the snail tank because the snail tank can't transport anything.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Um,
We're going to talk about that.
Well,
Good thing we're
transport
good.
doesn't work on characters at all anymore, right?
yeah,
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
it's special forces are core only. However, I do think Dooku Lesage is not really on the list of things we're going to talk about today, but I do think with the fact that you have an extra 200 points in all your lists and most of the characters got cheaper, like Dooku Lesage is probably good enough just with the three. It's a 3-pip, right?
Yeah. The double card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Before it was
it's
a
a 3-pip
joke.
and a 2-pip slot.
Yeah, it was a joke because you could never put the two of them in the same list.
Right.
But now you definitely can, and that card is insanely powerful if you're able to time it correctly.
Yeah, it's really good. And the nice thing about Asajj, just generally when pairing her with anybody, but especially with Dooku, is that she doesn't really need her command cards, right? Like you divulge the 3-pip, which is the one that gives her 95% of the time, you're probably taking the one that has Makashi on it.
Yep.
Or, the bounty thing, I guess. But basically, you divulge that. You're not required to play it when you do that. It's just to literally give her keywords at the beginning of the game card. And then, like, her 1-pip is obviously good. That's the one that potentially gives her a bunch of dodges, which plays into her, marksman spending dodges keyword.
Yep.
But other than that, like her 2-pip is eh.
Or two
The,
pip,
the
particularly with force push being 40 points now,
exactly right.
it's sort of
The chance that you're going to be having a relevant recover is a lot lower than it was previously. So you probably don't even bring it. You bring Dooku's 2-pip, and then you bring their dual card, which counts as a 2-pip, and then you just play Dooku's cards, and you give him aggressive tactics, and you use direct trooper unit to give Asajj an order, and she gets free search.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's a really interesting list concept to me. I'm probably going to land on the list that has a bunch of B2s in it because I want to do that as the thing. But there was a strong consideration for like Dooku Asajj, which you can also run with a non-zero meaningful quantity of B2s, by the way. So
That's cool.
yeah. Should we like talk about well, I guess we should talk about Grievous and then we can talk about B2s.
Yeah.
So Grievous also got some pretty solid buffs. He's 130 points, which is not that much cheaper than he was before. But he got
I love how when we talked about the super tax, who got the same decrease, that it was a significant amount. But then when we talk about Grievous, it wasn't that much.
I actually think that how much was he before?
He was 150.
That's 20 points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's more than I thought it was.
A, it's more than he thought it was, but B, I think Grievous came out the farthest ahead out of all of these character changes on the points.
Yeah, so there's a massive command card change, which we'll get to, but his unit card changes are pretty relevant too, and they're kind of subtle. Some of these are pretty important, but not as noticeable. So he lost Arsenal, but his trophy lightsabers basically got combined into one attack.
Yeah.
It's the same dice, but it got critical on the trophy lightsabers, which means you're converting an extra surge that you weren't converting before, which was a huge problem for Grievous. He's only got one training slot. There's like 5 different things you want to put in that one training slot. So into the fray has always been a tough call on him. Obviously, you can give him aggressive tactics, but he's always been very surge hungry. So getting critical just natively on his melee attack is big.
Yep.
He also got Entourage Magna Guard.
Yeah.
Which is massive because you can do the whole Magna Guard are a great unit anyway, but you can do the whole like give them a comms relay and just bounce an order to literally whatever you want thing for a pretty reasonable cost. So yeah.
And then he's immune pierce now
instead of impervious, which is a big change. Yep.
So big.
What I find kind of insane about Grievous is now that Jedi are, I'm going to put this in air quotes, not paying the force push tax. His chassis is way better than most Jedi as far as like his attack, his health pool, his like just unit card abilities. He's got Relentless, he's got Entourage, he's got scale's kind of whatever because most Jedi have jump, but
Right.
like he's got a built-in range attack without having to take saber throw. Um, we can get to his command cards in a second, but like for 130 points, if you're not taking like force push on a force user, like he's just way better and also like 20 to 30 points cheaper than most other force users.
Yeah, exactly. In a world where force push is 40 points. I mean, he has only 10 more points than Commander Luke.
Right.
And Commander Luke has way worse attacks and two less health.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so
like what's like Kenobi's coming in at like 150-ish now, I think.
150. No, that's
Yeah,
not right.
150.
Is it?
So like, you compare like the chassis of Kenobi to like the chassis of Grievous, and it's not even like particularly close.
No, it's not.
Hmm.
Yeah. So basically the force slot has been significantly devalued since, you know, the cost of the first upgrade you're putting in that slot has quadrupled. So
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Like if you want to make Kenobi good, all of a sudden he's an 190 point unit as opposed to 130, and but I think you say that about most force users, and obviously Grievous, like you're never going to do that because he doesn't have force push. But in a world where it seems like we are supposed to be pushed towards not taking force push anyways, Grievous just seems wildly a bargain.
yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
I'd agree. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, he's currently in the list that I have queued up for this weekend.
I mean, for 130 points, like if you just want to fire him like a missile into your opponent's army and just like do the whirlwind thing, like that's probably fine and probably good enough.
Yeah, and sort of similar to explosions, now that you're like forced to group up in specific locations near the center of the map. I mean, you can probably land some pretty good trained in your Jedi arts, where previously you might have to force it. Now it's just like, all right,
Here we go.
your dudes are all next to each other because that's how this game works now.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think is it his 3 pip that we got to talk about, or his 2 pip, whichever one is the
It's the
ruthless
two
one.
pip, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think the 3 pip is relevant simply because things die so much more easily now, and the 3 pip depends on things dying.
Sure.
So, but yeah, the 2 pip basically is. Hang on, let me scroll down to the command cards here.
I have it here if you want
Okay,
me
go
to do
ahead.
it.
Yeah, go nuts.
Yeah, so Supreme Commander for 2 troopers. General Grievous gains Ruthless this round. When a friendly unit is issued an order by this card, that unit and each other friendly trooper unit at range 1 and in line of sight of that unit gains 1 surge token.
I mean, that's super good for multiple
For a
reasons.
variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the face ups with Ruthless is great. Notably, it doesn't matter where the face up comes from. This isn't like a issue an order with this card kind of situation. You
Yeah.
can use the bevy of directs that droids have available to them. And usually you can get like 4 uses of Ruthless out of this.
And Ruthless was they can take a wound to perform an action.
Yeah, and luckily
Yeah.
B2s are like the only core unit in existence that have 2 wounds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so you can just eat a wound and not lose a
Yeah,
model, and then
yeah.
activate this and get them in range 2 from range 4 away.
yeah.
use
Before
their-
like taking attrition to trigger Ruthless was like a really big deal, but this is the first time that's not a thing.
And they also
Yeah.
have 12-point repair bots to put that wound back.
Yeah.
So yeah, super good. And then of course you just get a bunch of surges also, which is great because droids are really surge hungry. So
Particularly now that they're a red safe faction.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, surging red saves. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, no,
Very excited about it.
Um,
While we're talking about this card, should we quickly talk about how reinforcements changed? Because that's also relevant to the
Yeah.
super attack conversation that we kind of skipped over.
yes, we should.
So basically, since you don't deploy stuff anymore in the conventional fashion, it is now basically just at the end of round one, you get a free speed one move.
Yeah. Which I think is actually like pretty good on the limited stuff in Separatists that have scout. So like
Yep.
if you want to like scout 3 with your BXs, move and then shoot and then slide behind a building, like that's something you can do.
Yeah.
So
Um
it's also good just because I mean, I think Separatist primary weakness is that they don't have access to a lot of scout. So you can kind of use this to make up for that a little bit. It's, you know, clearly it doesn't allow you to take like the turn one shots that scout would otherwise allow you to do potentially, but it does allow you to get stuff further up the board, which is helpful.
it does. I would also like to point out, because we're not actually going to go over this unit, but I think I'm not actually positive. Other than the super tax, the only unit in the game that natively has reinforcements is the swoop bike riders. Is that an accurate statement? I think it's close if it's not.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But this means that swoops can move 4 times turn one. uh, it should be noted that the reinforcements move is not a move action and therefore will not trigger overrun.
Yeah, or any other keywords that trigger off that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we've been talking a lot about B2s. Should we just hit B2s?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get in there.
You've been itching for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's actually a lot of changes here. This might be the only unit that had all of their attacks and their save completely changed that I can think of. Is that accurate?
All attacks
I think the closest
and their
thing would be
save.
probably be the arcs or Anakin,
Yeah.
but
But those are
I would agree with your assessment.
yeah. So their save changed from white to red, which is
Huge.
triple,
Yeah.
basically triple as good as it was, or when you count for surge tokens, twice as good as it was, which is obviously great. They did lose armor one, but that's definitely like, I mean, that's not a wash. That's significantly more durable still.
Yeah.
They got basically 2 black instead of black white on their arm cannons. But
Yeah.
importantly, they also now work in melee, kind of similar to a lot of these pistol like shotgun type weapons getting melee added to their range. So they throw 2 black dice in melee.
Yeah.
They also got an extra weapon, wrist rockets, which is a range 1, impact 1 red dice weapon. So in case you need some native impacts, just
I think it's particularly good in the XD, but yes.
yeah, because the snail tanks are going to be close to you anyway. You sidle up in that side shot, you get weak point 1.
Well, sorry,
So
I meant in EXD.
oh, with EXD,
I
yeah,
think because the wrist rockets are kind of like a little bit uninspiring, but like as soon as you're like, oh, I'm throwing X amount of red dice plus like a black and a white, like the impact gets a lot better. And the fact that they can also have the option to like speed 3 into range 1, um, also a big deal. But
yeah, totally. I mean, I think unless you're shooting at a vehicle, you're probably not using these just because the 2 black dice is going to be objectively better most of the time. But they do add a little bit of reliability to the pool if you want to, kind of similar to like a Death Trooper situation, throw 1 or 2 of these in there to just make sure you're getting a couple hits. I could see it. But against the vehicle, yeah, this is great. I mean, it's even if you just have like 3 dudes in a heavy, that's impact 4.
yeah,
And if you've got the full like double size squad, that's an impact 8, potentially more if you take the HA, right? So it's a lot.
I think this unit is the new most expensive like naked core unit, right? That's 64.
64. Yes. Yeah. Most of them are in the 50s. I think this might even be the only one that's in the 60s.
Yep. Um, I mean, it's 6 health. It's for good reason.
6 health red save before you take
Yeah.
any extra models.
Yeah.
So it's already more durable than every other core unit when you like until you double the squad size, basically.
Yeah. Definitely makes Rebel Troopers look like uh, we shoot more dice than you. We have like twice as much health than you. We have better saves.
Yeah, I mean it is a range 2 unit, but range 2 is the new range 3.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think B1s I think are gonna get usurped here being the go-to core unit of choice in this faction with this upgraded card.
Yeah, between this card and coordinate being significantly less useful because you don't really need it to manage AI anymore.
And it's just way harder to keep your B1s alive. Like
Yeah,
like
right. They
they
immediately die.
vaporize. They're
Yeah.
just um
That was sort of always the case, but previously it was at least like maybe you could have a model or two survive, but now they just die.
yeah.
I mean, you can sort of cheaply take the double size B1 squads. What do you guys think of that? Double size B1 squads for
I
like
tried that in
70
my
something win.
first game of New Legion ever. I got shot
Okay.
off the table on turn 2.
Okay. Well, there you
I'm
go.
not
Yeah, I like the idea of it, but it just seems,
there was a couple issues that I ran into immediately. The
Okay.
first is that like the idea of having what is it? Is it 13 guys in the double squad? I think it's 13 guys. Throwing 13 white dice. It's like, oh yeah, like I definitely should be with how the new cover system works, like you should be reasonably like passing stuff into saves, right? The issue is that it's just super easy to shave like 5 guys off the B1 squad. You're not
yeah,
throwing 13 dice by the time you get there. They don't have scout. And the fact that there's 13 dudes in the squad makes it so tremendously difficult to ever have cover.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's hard enough to like finagle cover with the how the rules work now with like 5 guy squads.
Yeah. 3 inches is real short.
Yeah, and once you jack it up to 13, and you got to have 7 people
yeah.
like in hard cover, it's tougher. For sure.
Yeah, and I think Mike, you brought this up, I don't know, whatever, a number of episodes ago, and about, and it just got me thinking about like adding all these extra, miniatures with these larger squads. I think you had said like you thought it was like a trap, right? And it just got me thinking more and more about that. And I think you're right overall. And I think there's some instances like where it's kind of part of the army's like build, or like you're making it part of its identity, that it makes sense. But I think overall, I think it's just something nice to have. But I think people, because we could do it now, right? You're getting a lot of people that are just like, I'm gonna have 13 B1s, good luck. But I think it's just it's a trap in that, with B1s specifically, I think.
I think across the board, if you're gonna take the super squads, uh, you've got to have a really good reason. You have to have a reason that is justifiable to
Mm.
be investing points in basically taking an activation's worth of upgrades into a unit. Where in a game where activations really matter because every unit is a scoring unit and we're playing KP every turn,
Yeah. And you need a real plan for how you're going to use that unit too.
Yeah, like I think the best use I've seen out of the super squad so far is definitely like the 5 shotgun unit.
Yeah.
Like which seems pretty good. I think the second and third places that it's really good are actually in Separatists, and I think those are like super B2 squads and Geo squads.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's talk about those both real quick. I mean, obviously, Geos didn't explicitly get any changes, but the fact that you can double up on the best part of the Geos, which is the naked trooper unit, is
Yeah,
pretty relevant.
Yeah.
like doubling up on there. It's more than double really, because it's I think it's 9-man units. So
Yep.
you're going from throwing 8 dice to 18
Yeah.
on the geo units, and how much is that? I think there's
It's less than 100
sub
points.
100.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough to sleep on any unit that can throw 18 dice for sub 100 points. And that unit actually, with the way that um, placing your units works when changing elevation now, and that you don't have to place the whole unit at the new elevation, it's actually much easier to trigger death from above. Um, and
Yeah.
in my experience, at least thus far, climbing and stuff seems significantly less likely, because that means you're not behind the thing that is shielding you from getting shot.
Right.
Mm.
Um, so like people just like generally aren't on top of terrain, because if you're on top of terrain, you're sort of dead. Um, which means that everybody's on the ground, which means death from above gets a lot better, I think.
Yep.
Um,
I
so
mean, technically speaking, yes.
yeah,
In
I mean,
practice, yeah.
the geos are still very, they're in a similar spot to
They're super
B1s,
squish.
Yeah.
where, but they're super fast. They're like one of the only units in Separatists that has scout, because of their free action jump. Um, so they kind of have like a weird thing going on there. I think geos are gonna be actually quite busted and insane once we get crab droids, and you can give them scout in addition.
Just move them range 5 across the table.
You can, well,
Basically.
you just triple move them and then shoot.
Yeah.
Turn one, I don't know. That just seems really busted for core units. So I guess we'll see. But
Yeah. And now that you can throw 18 dice when you're doing that.
right, that's sort of what I mean. You just like you play the God Save the Queen card turn one, and you just get in there.
Mm,
Yeah.
nice.
What do you think of double size B2s?
I'm not sure. I think I'm a little bit back and forth on the B2s. I know that you're like, it seems like you're super sold on them for Nova.
Well,
But
not necessarily the double size ones.
I'm not even sold like on the like generic ones. Like I think they're fine. I think B2s are expensive enough at this point that it's putting me off them a little bit, to be honest with you. I think 64 points for, don't get me wrong, the 6 health is great, but this game feels like it's way more about offense than defense. And the B2 squad feels like, when we're comparing it against things like how much is it when you add a heavy and you're adding like 3 dice?
88.
88. So like at that point you're at 88 points. You're an 8 health unit. I just like compare that against like a full arc or like a clone squad, and I'm like, the range 2 is pretty limiting there, and that you're gonna be taking fire. I don't know. I guess is I'm not sure I'm sold on it.
So having run efficiency metrics on these guys among lots of other things, because I feel like the game even more than before is about just raw health and raw dice. Um, B2s of all the core units have the most defensive efficiency by a lot.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean, health per point is like definitely at an all-time high with this unit. I'm definitely
yeah,
not going to dispute that.
but I don't think it's the double sized B2s. I think it is the B2 with the ACM and the PK droid, and that comes to an even 100 points. It's 9 health with repair 2, which is it's easy to be like, oh, that's an 11 health unit, but it's actually, when you span that across multiple units, it's more like, since you're putting the repair into the target that your opponent is most shooting, it's like basically you could have one unit that has like 17 health or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because, and it's also worth noting too, unless they change this, when you put back when you use repair on a unit that has multi-health models in it, you're not like obligated to fully repair the damaged models before you put another model back.
No, you're not.
So yeah, so you could have a situation where you end up via repair with like 4 1 health B2s in the same unit.
Yes.
Which means that, you can take a bunch of wounds. You can take 8 wounds, say, for example, and then use your 4+ repair bots to put back 4 models, and you've only done repair 4, but offensively speaking, your unit is back up to where it was before your opponent did 8 wounds to it. So,
Yeah, that's super interesting.
yeah, I'm probably gonna try that version of it. I know that people love the double-sized B2s for tempo reasons because obviously that's a pretty massive offensive pool, and you can use like Grievous's 2 pips to get them right up in there and take a however many dice that is, like it's 18 dice shot.
Well, it's 7 of them, right?
7 plus probably a heavy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's so expensive. That's like 150 point unit at that
Yeah,
point.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean it's the equivalent. It's the droid equivalent of the 5's double size unit, basically, right?
Sure.
Which I think is even more. But
It's about the same.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that, except you have uh 16 health instead of 11. So,
Sure.
and you're repairing them with 12-point models instead of you're doing repair 2 with 12 points instead of, treat 1 with for what 17 points is the clone medic. So
I do think that we are at the juncture where droid repair and medics have to start mirroring the other factions as far as cost goes. Like they definitely, like I don't think they changed the points cost on them, and if they did, they really did not change them enough. But the fact that like we're valuing droid repair is significantly worse than the other factions at this point, when like you're putting back B2 wounds and BX wounds and Magna wounds, and or you're now putting back like Grievous and Dooku, and like it's not remotely close to it is basically the same efficiency at this point.
yeah, I mean it's a little bit of an awkward spot, and I actually don't think the medic or repair droid costs have changed since they came out for
Yeah.
droids. I think it's 12 and 14 still printed on the unit cards. Somebody with one of those unit cards in front of me can correct me. But basically at the time it was like, well, the medic is going to be cheaper because your only eligible targets for that are your characters, basically.
Mhm.
But the repair bot has to be a little bit more expensive because all of your units are able to be repaired, right? The other factions have like 8 to 9 point repair bots, and the droid one is 12. But of course, you look now and you've got droid units like BX droids or Magna Guards or B2s where they're essentially, elite units on a per wound basis, and you're bringing those guys back with a 12-point repair 2 model where you're paying like 18 to 19 points in other factions to bring back Magnas or Death Troopers or sorry,
Yeah.
not Magnas, IRG or Death Troopers or whatever. So yeah, I think it's definitely a conversation to be had. I don't think it's quite as straightforward as the other factions, since in the other factions, if you're taking a medic, you're you're treating your characters and your elite trooper units with the same thing. If you're taking a repair bot, you're repairing your vehicles. With droids, it's a little bit different of like it's a little bit more of a non-bow, and that you can't like just take one thing to take care of everything that you want to take. But I could definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah, I definitely like I think it'd be like a point or two cheaper, I think would be fine. But I think the idea that they're like any less efficient is sort of silly at this juncture. I mean, we started seeing that with the XD, right?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
this is not a new thing, but I think it's exacerbated now by the fact that
Yeah.
their core units are clones, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
which is fine, but like if clones had medics that had 2 charges for that cost, clones would be busted AF, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't be close. So yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah. All
That
right,
was a
let's see.
lot of talk about B2s.
It was.
I mean, I
And
think you're gonna see them everywhere. I
Yeah.
think the biggest hurdle people are gonna have is just like most people don't have 6B2s or 12
and
B2s, right? Like
and they're like sold out everywhere now.
are they?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet they are.
This is why I'm borrowing B2s for Nova
B2.
potentially.
Same.
It's almost as if they did it on purpose to sell product.
Well, again,
Yeah.
I don't, like I'm not really convinced that please, if you take anything from this cast over the last like 2 months, do not go out and just like buy a bunch of stuff so that you can double all your core units, because that I don't think is a winning strategy. Like out the
Yeah.
gate.
Yeah. I mean, go buy more stuff, but it doesn't have to be core units.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Like don't do it with that express purpose. Like
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people like, oh man, I need like 12 of everything now. I'm like, whoa,
Well,
whoa,
I think the
whoa.
problem
Slow
is,
your jets, because I don't
well,
think 12.
right. Yeah, yeah. I think getting them out the door like this weekend for whatever event you're going to is not the right. But I do understand that impulse to just like have them in case, like in like a month you decide, oh yeah, I'm gonna do some crazy B2 list, and then you're like, ah, I should have bought those when I had the chance, like because they're
Yeah.
all,
I think you just borrow them, frankly.
yeah,
I yeah, I'm of that mentality with all the core units right now. A, because I'm not sure if it's good enough to do that heavy of an investment.
Yeah.
But B, a lot of them are getting resculpts next year anyway,
yeah,
which I'm definitely going to buy, at least in the Rebel case, because they're amazing.
yeah,
So much better than the
and
Corset
hard
models
plastic,
and hard plastic.
yeah,
So, to the extent that I'm thinking of, if I were in a position where I'm looking at like doubling up Rebel Trooper units, there's no way I'm buying more Rebel Trooper units. I'm just going to wait and then borrow in the meantime. And I think the same is true for other core units,
yeah,
frankly. So,
yeah, that's fair.
all right. We actually don't have that much left to talk about. Uh,
Good, 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 good.
which is partly why we spent so much time on B2s, besides the fact that they changed a lot. But BX Droid Commandos basically the same, except they got jump,
Yep.
which is not insignificant. Previously they just had scale, so this does help them move over terrain even better now. Of course, the strike team's got detachment.
Yeah, I gotta be real. I know that I've been like making a lot of Republic comparisons, but can we talk about the fact that the BX droids got jump and the ARCs did not?
They can take jetpacks though. You can pay for jetpacks if you want jump, Mike.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I not all of us have to pay for it.
I think arcs are still the better unit.
Yeah.
So
I
I don't
like
know that.
I will say this mostly across the board. I think the changes thematically line up, and I
Yeah.
think you can thematically go, oh, this is I get it from a like a technical
Mm,
gameplay, like, but like thematically, you're like, yeah, that I like that. That makes sense, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the theme, a lot of these reworks have hit theme pretty well for the most part. I think my favorite theme change, which I'm not sure that we've actually talked about up until this point, is that Inspire and Demoralize happen at the end of a turn as opposed to the beginning, or at the
Mhm.
of an activation
the
rather.
end of an activation.
Yeah, which I think
That's
is like,
interesting.
yeah, your unit goes and does something heroic, and then it inspires things. Or
Yeah.
Vader like
Yeah.
goes and like chops a bunch of stuff up, and then he demoralizes things, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah,
The poison axis thing got the same change that all the other detonate units got, which is that it's basically just a range. It's a grenade now that also works in melee. The dice got improved. It,
Boy,
the, I think it's relevant to talk about in this particular situation insofar as sort of uniquely among the grenade units, BX droids actually have a very good melee profile if you give them vibro swords.
and
Hmm.
then you can have charge too.
And you can give them charge that way. So you can, unlike scout troopers and commandos, you can actually give the melee grenade to a specialized melee unit. So poison and melee. I think I mean, certainly no force user would want to get slapped by that.
Mm.
Um,
Well,
all
and I
right.
mean, and then going back to what we were talking about earlier, right? With reinforcements, right? Like if you gave them vibro swords and like the poison grenade and move, reinforce, like you could be pretty close to somebody's grill.
Yeah, and they have Scout 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, with the Scout 3 too, right. So like you're getting right into the mix right away.
Yep. Yeah, it is kind of expensive. It's like 98 points
Yeah,
when you throw the poison grenade on there. Which is a lot for a 5 model unit, especially for a droid 5 model unit these days.
that's fair. It's
But
interesting.
yeah, you could also just take him naked at 64 points. It's not that bad.
Hmm.
Yeah, I sort of. So you say that, but like, I think I'm taking B2s naked before I'm taking BXs naked.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're the same cost.
Yeah, I mean the BXs have scout and they have a better. Obviously, they can attack at range 3, which the B2s can't do. But
Yeah.
okay. Magnas, the experimental Magnas are in here for some reason. If somebody knows why these guys are in here.
Did their
Good
melee
question.
profile or darts change?
No. Not
Let's see.
they were previously black white and they're still black white. I don't know. I mean the snail tank is in here too, the EXD snail. Obviously that one got the armor 5 change that all the other full armor units got.
Yeah,
So that's a clear reason for that to be in here. I don't know why the Magnas are in here, but if one of our listeners knows what changed, please tell us. Because I don't know.
Oh, they will.
Yep. All right. AAT got the armor 5 treatment. It also got critical 2 on its gun natively, which is an upgrade, and impact 2.
Was it
Used to
just
just be
it couldn't have been just a points change, right?
for the Magnus.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
weird.
it looks
Anyways,
like it is.
yeah.
okay. Sorry.
Anyway,
Sorry.
that's
I was
fine.
going
Yeah.
back I was like looking at him going, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
AAT has basically all the same keywords and health and everything. The artillery cannon is still 4 red, but it got critical 2 and impact 2 instead of critical 1, impact 1. So that's a little bit of an upgrade. But otherwise, it's basically the same. And the Persuader got the armor 5 treatment.
Yep.
And I think it's slight dice upgrade. Snail aficionados can correct me if that's not the case, but that's my understanding. Off the top of my head.
Yeah. The fact that these tanks are the same cost is kind of
The EXD snail is crazy.
yeah. But
That's the best part of EXD now, I think.
yeah, it's the double snails for sure. It's not close. The fact that you can only take 2 BXs and the fact that it's like much more reasonable to actually kill the BXs is a big deal. And the fact that the range 5 config on the snipers is significantly less important in that they can't like you're fighting no matter what. Like before, the range 5 was important because they kind of just like held you at arm's length and then you had to charge into them and then they wrecked your face. But now like they're not just taking range 5 shots ever. They're like they're
Right.
getting in there and doing the thing. So
Yeah, you're not doing the 2 dice upgrade to 4 dice sniper shot thing. That was great. In Legacy Legion. It's just it doesn't matter as
Ooh,
much anymore.
I
I mean,
like
we
that. Legacy Legion.
Legacy Legion. Yeah, I mean, we kind of had the snipers that are actually worse, even though they got a cost increase conversation last week or the week before, but that definitely applies to the BX droids as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, snail ESD snails exemplar with the defensive protocols is a little bit crazy.
it's very good. Yeah.
So for those that don't know how nimble works with exemplar, because this is relevant for rebel players too, the when you spend a dodge token, you then get a dodge token back. So if you have a dodge token on a exemplar unit, say a super tactical droid. And of course, the Persuader has a nimble from defensive protocols. If they spend the super tactical's dodge token, they then get a dodge token that they get to keep for the rest of the turn. So
Yeah, so good.
yeah, same is true, of course, of rebel troopers with rebel officers or whatever. But yeah, super tanky tank droids.
Super tanky tanks.
Yep. All right.
Another great change overall was making vehicles, not armor, but vehicles more
Numerical
scary.
armor.
Yeah.
More scary. Yeah, I think they're only more scary because you just don't have time to kill them anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, whether it was an accidental
Sure. Yeah.
move, it's still okay. Listen, I get it. I get it. It's a balancing act, but for the longest time, vehicles were kind of scary, but not really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you really had to know how to play them to even stay in the game. Mike and I talked about this at nauseum, I'm sure, when you weren't on. But like now, they just feel good again, and it's nice to see that they're out there and playable.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, previously, I think under Legacy Legion, I think you could say the best vehicles were the ones that relied on things like displacement and blocking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I always had a problem with. Displacement was one of the things I hated most about Legacy Legion, and one of the things that, like, I'm glad it's gone. They might have, I don't know if they went too far by just removing it entirely. I would have liked to just see it not be beneficial at all to the player doing it. But
Hmm.
anyway, so that's gone, which is great, which means that to the extent that vehicles have value now, it's in the same way that other units have value, which is, can they hold points and can they kill stuff? So
Yeah.
I think that's great. Um, yeah. All right.
Good. We're all in
Any,
agreement then. Vehicles are great.
all right. Any final thoughts, gentlemen? I think that rounds out all our separatist changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're making a competitive separatist list at the moment, like it's definitely fundamentally going to be built on the back of B2s and characters and stuff, as opposed to. I think separatist list building has changed probably the most out of everyone with the changes to AI,
Yep.
the core unit mix up, and just how the game works now.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting to see what it could be now versus what it was, and the opportunity that like you were talking about with the Genosians and the future with those crab droids. It's just it's nice to know that those things are coming.
Yeah, the crab droids are going to be interesting because they're going to give scout to things that don't normally have access to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they are.
scouting B2s. All right. Hope everybody's ready.
Yep. Scouting B2s with Ruthless.
Yeah. And potentially reinforcements also. You can do all those things.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Yep. All right.
All
Well,
right.
we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
Mike.
I'm Jay.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Stay cool, fruit Matt.